In part, this weekend at Horizons Unlimited is to celebrate the 40th anniversary of you setting out on the Jupiter's Travels journey. Over the last 40 years, have there been any significant landmarks that stand out in your mind?
The significant moment was when, having moved to the Wild West in California, I discovered that that Jupiter's Travels had suddenly become a cult book in America, and that which is really what brings me here today, because it was then that I realized that that to just forget about it, as I had been doing until that point, was not really the most sensible thing for me. I thought, well, if all these people in America want to read this book, then I ought to have something to do with it.
For many people, it's an iconic book. It set an awful lot of people dreaming for themselves and hitting the road.
Yes.
Have you been surprised at the effect?
Oh yeah, I was totally unexpected.
Were there any particular points about the book that you're really proud of in the way that it has then gone on to affect other people?
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that apparently it's the only book that some people have ever read. I mean, I think it's that I'm proud of that I made it so readable. And secondly, I'm very proud of the fact that people in their late teens are buying it and not finding it old-fashioned. At least they're not telling me. If they are, it still sells. It's crossed 3 generations now, and I'm very proud of having been able to pull that off. And I really, somebody should ask me to give classes on how to do that, because it obviously has touched some universal chord. My agent always said that the book I wrote after it was actually a much better book, because if judged by literary standards, there were many things that could have been improved, but it seems to have tapped some spring of enthusiasm and passion for life that really affects people.
I think one of the keys for me when I read it was that it just came across that actually anybody can go out and travel if they've got the right sort of mindset and enthusiasm. And travelling with your eyes wide open and actually digging into the cultures rather than just scooting across the surface is where the adventure really comes from.
Yes, of course, that's true. It's amazing that it would take a book to make people realise that. In a way, that's the interesting thing that I used to be so often asked. What I think is one of the dumbest questions there you can ask is, why did you do it? It's kind of it's so obvious that if you could do it, you would. Why would you not want to know what was going on in the world if you're only going to be here for a certain amount of time?
And that brings me very nicely on to the Ted Simon Foundation, because you've got some very key reasons for the foundation having been set up. Would you like to explain what those are?
Well, yes, it is. It is very much to do with sharing your experience, and of course that was one of my prime objects when I first set off on that first journey. It was not just to do it for myself, it was to write a book. I had no idea that the book would be what it became, but I knew I was going to write about it, and so it was very important for me all the way around for 4 years to retain the experiences that I'd had and be able to do something with them. And the significance that this book has had apparently in so many people's lives, I think, is proof of the fact that the foundation has value, is an important thing, because that's all we want to do, is to persuade others to do, in a sense, what I did, which is to travel with eyes wide open and with some kind of social conscience, some desire to share experiences and make the world a more habitable and enjoyable place to live in. You know, I don't want it. Uniformity is certainly not what I'm after, but to counter racial prejudices, xenophobia, all the things that have made life on Earth rather difficult for a lot of people. And it seems that although I'm taking less and less of a practical part in running it, it seems as though it's got some momentum behind it now, and there are some very nice people like yourself and Ian Harpo sitting on my right to pick it up and run with it. I think it's wonderful.
Are there any key bits of advice that you would give to writers and photographers and filmmakers who are applying to the foundation?
I can't really think that any advice from me would be useful to them, because they're the ones with the drive and the instinct to do it, and they have to find their own voices and do it in their own way. And I can't imagine that I have anything to teach them or to show them, really. The mere fact that they want to do it is enough. I mean, it all comes from that.
Now, you've got a new project that's just been born, really, haven't you? A brand new book.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It's a brand new book that's 40 years old.
Yeah.
and the nice thing about it is that it's given that book of mine a new lease of life for me. It's a book of pictures that I took when I was on that first trip, and it's just worth mentioning again, although it's been said many times, it's worth mentioning again that when I did that trip in 1973, pictures didn't have anything like the same significance in the world as they do today. Of course, we had pictures appeared in magazines and newspapers, but the emphasis in terms of communicating was always words, and so it never occurred to me when I was making that journey and planning a book that the book would have any pictures in it. And in fact, the first editions didn't have any. But I did take pictures because it seemed like an obvious thing to do, to take snaps here and there as I went around, and had we had small cameras in those days, a couple of Pentaxes, and I never really thought that they would be anything more than just useful ways of remembering what I'd seen and people I'd met. And in those days you had to make two images coincide on the screen in order to get something in focus. There was no autofocus, and I just wasn't very good at it. And it's taken 40 years for technology to catch up with my incompetence, and now those pictures have become. It has been possible to make those pictures sharp enough. Erdem Yücel, who's also in the foundation, just marvelous. I'm not saying he's the only man on earth who could have done it, but he did it brilliantly, and designed the book brilliantly, and so I'm able to say that it's a beautiful book because the beauty is not mine, it's his.
Can I just ask you to hold the book up so that
the pictures are very surprisingly good. As this thing progressed, this was last year, I was working on it for 4 or 5 months with Erdem, and as I was doing it, I began to realize my original idea of taking text out of Jupiter's Travels and putting it with the pictures wasn't going to work. There was no way. The words in the book were all much too long-winded for this kind of use, and so I ended up having to write what is really a mini book again. And in the course of doing it, of course, it was like doing the whole thing, the whole journey again. It was a marvelous experience. It's actually brought it all to life for me. It's a lovely book, And I can't believe that anybody who really enjoyed Jupiter's Travels would not want to have this as well, because it's a completely new dimension to the whole.
And
whole
you're
thing.
bringing out a special edition of that, aren't you, with personally signed?
Well, this is
dedicated copies?
this is a way to raise money for the foundation, which we really need to do, because there's a lot of work involved in bringing all these people together and helping them to help each other.